Hello, KFC SuperCoaches. It's the Game Day podcast, round 5. Big breaking news dropped about 45 minutes ago. That is that Josh Schuster, one of the most popular purchases this week and one of the most popular players in SuperCoach, is out. Now, we've got a huge panel. That's the crew circa 2018 with Rob Sutherland and Tim Williams here as well. Schuster, how's it affected you?
Well, it's devastating, Thomas.
Yeah.
I had to bring Cameron Murray back into my team. It's a real SuperCoach thing, isn't it? When you go, oh, geez, I've got to drop a bloke who's played a couple of games this year and bring back an absolute all-star rugby league. So anyway, that's what I've got to do and bring back Cam.
Tim?
I was going to say the OG panel, but I've seen clips from back in the day of Jimmy Hooper doing a bit of SuperCoach action, so I think he predated me.
Prior to being the sideline eye on Fox.
Yeah.
Exactly.
His career's really gone
Look who's
down.
gone.
Yeah. Schuster, drama. So, had him come in this week. I still don't mind him as a trade-in option, as long as you can sort of cover a decent enough 17 this week. Look, it's a cork, I believe, that he's out with, or believed to be out with, so he's still probably going to be one of the most trade-in players next week if he does return. So if you're freeing up cash to get Nico Hines or Ruben Garrick or whoever it might be, I don't think it's the end of the world, but it's changed my trades up.
Yeah, 100%. One guy who I'm considering getting in with Schuster out, and it does look like he will be back next week, or that's what the club's saying anyway. I'm thinking 3 guys, really. Matt Croker from the Knights, Isaac for Asamoah, who has the bye this week, so ideally I don't want to go there, but he is bottom dollar at prop. And the one guy who I'm devastated that we haven't changed dual positions already is Connolly Lemuelu, because he will get dual position status next week. Can we pull a few strings and get him dual position status this week, get him in the back row, and then I think he would be close to the cheapie of the week. And I'll say that if you don't own Jackson Ford, he is the cheapie of the week this week, so just get on him instead, but I already own him.
Look, I had a good look at Lemuelu because I can get him with this issue because I've got Braden Williame, who, like, at some stage I'd like to see playing again because he looked really good in round 1 and we haven't seen him since. I could slide him up. I still got that worry, right? And I'd like to hear, my learned opinion, the learned colleague, your opinion to me, because you often talk me out of making really bad mistakes. And I see Lemuelu and I go, a bit of a trap, right? When Kafusi's back, when the pack's at full strength, when it was at full strength, he played 20 minutes off the bench. The one time he played big minutes off the bench was when Wallace went out. And according to the NRL, he played at prop, but really he played in the back row and Bromwich moved into the middle. I can't help but see a bit of trap here. Yeah,
so Kafusi's got another 2 or 3 weeks out.
2, I think.
It's 3, isn't it?
Is it 3?
Because it was a 4-week suspension.
4 weeks, he's missed 1, so he's got another 3 weeks. Okay. Break-even's -9, so to be honest, I think by that time his job will be done and you'll be moving him on anyway. It also gives an opportunity to win. That's what we saw a couple of weeks ago, that they actually played Kenny Bromwich as a middle, which I don't love personally, but you mentioned that was due to other issues with the side. But they had, obviously, Kaufusi and Lemuelu on the edges. Because Kaufusi's still out for a few more weeks, I think he's playing 80 minutes the next 3 weeks at least. He'll have made his cash. I don't mind him, but it's good for you, as Tommy said, I'm in the same boat. We're very happy with my CT dubs. I've got Luke Garn sitting in the back row, so there's one spot in my back row that I can move on. But, yeah, look, I don't mind him.
Can you wind that back? Because I prefer when you just agree with my preconceptions rather than bring your own logic to it.
After working with you for, I think it was about 5 years, Rob, I've learned to just disagree with everything regardless if I believe in it or not.
It's a long 5 years.
Let's chat some of the other guys who are going to be popular now that Schuster is out. Matt Croker, do you like him? He's literally in 0% of teams coming into this round. That means he's still in 400 or something teams, but it's rounded down to 0. Getting pretty good minutes, but the reason he's getting big minutes is that the Knights are copping just huge injuries. So do you think it'll continue for Matt Croker?
He's doing really well with the time he's getting. Yes, the time's under threat, but the Knights are a team in a rebuild, to put it politely. The forward pack, has its holes. Like, a kid shows plenty. What's to say he doesn't get more minutes, even when the big guys are back?
Look, I don't love him for that reason
See, Tim, this is going to be a long show.
How long do we go for?
Not long, I'll be out.
Look, been great so far, but look, Kurt Mann was injured last week, was playing as a middle. a pretty decent middle as well. So we've got Adam Elliott due back in the next couple of rounds. Kurt Mann, I don't know how Mann's out for, but
it's a concussion, so hopefully this
Kurt
one,
Mann. There's a few other players coming back. Saifidi come back into the mix, so he could keep some minutes. But as I said, he's a middle forward. Played 67 minutes in round one. Sorry. Wrong
Croker. Yes, Dan. You're looking up. Looking up the Raiders golden boy, Jared Croker.
Jared Croker played 78 minutes in round one of New South Wales Cup. Matty Croker though, 48 minutes round one, 43 minutes round two. Base was really good, but just really inflated game time. He's not bottom dollar. He's 319k. So I just think with players coming back into the mix, is he going to do enough in that time? He might, but I'm just not sure if he's going to get the game time.
Another guy who I think will go up in ownership is Jonah Pezzett, who's already pretty popular, but you can get him in the halves. So if you were going to buy Schuster at 5'8", you can probably swing it by moving a guy like Isaiah Katoa. Thoughts on Pezzett? It's probably only a 1 week play. It may be, but I still think if he gets that bench spot in the second week, you could be looking at 150k in 2 weeks, and then he becomes Nicho Hynes in round 7.
Yeah, I don't mind the Pezzett play, but I think you're banking on him even obviously getting the bench spot next week when Jerome Hughes returns, because albeit it'll be very limited minutes off the bench, you'd imagine, if Munster and Hughes are fit. The issue is obviously by round 7 latest, you want the halves combo of Cleary and Nicho Hynes.
Yeah.
So let's say he doesn't get picked at all next week with Hughes back, and he gets his, say, 100k price rise this week, you're then making 2 trades for a 100k price rise. I sort of generally value a trade at anywhere from about 100 to 150k. I think there's better options.
Well, let's continue the theme. I'm all in on Pezzett, so screw you. I don't mind the 100k. I really like what I've seen from him, the way he plays. 40 points gets me 100. He could score 75 and then I'm getting my 130.
Yep.
And that's enough, I'll take that. And while I'd love him to go on the bench, I probably think it's unlikely. I mean, it's more like my dream scenario that he gets there. But if they're already carrying Bronson Garlic as a little bit of a utility second row, he's playing lock, but he's really a hooker. I suppose they really wouldn't play Pezzett there as well. I don't know. I'm doing it, so I don't care. I don't care what you say.
Well, there are heaps of questions, comments coming through right now. We're going to pimp your teams. So get on Facebook Live or YouTube Live and send through your comments. We'll try to get to them. Of course, send through your zingers as well. That's your sledges, your funnies. If you get a good one, you'll get this pop up on the screen. I'm going to take the first question that's popped in, and there are a lot, obviously, given that we've got big breaking news on Schuster. Rob needs to lay off the tanning bed. It might just be an RSL tan.
Classic Eastern Suburbs boy.
Yeah, I'm the last person who does any form of grooming, filler, tanning, hair dyeing. So look, thank you. That's lovely. Yeah.
Katoa, just for a price rise. I'm not sure if they're talking Eli Katoa. I presume they're talking Eli Katoa. What are your thoughts on him as a buy? I think he's already made his cash. I can't get around it, to be honest.
See, Tom does this, right? He gets a guy who goes well.
Yeah, if you already own him, it's different.
He's like, oh, you don't want him. Nah, steer clear. No, I got that Nicho Hynes. I've heard he might have a bit of a calf issue. Don't you get him?
I always say what I think is true at the time. Whether I backflip and change my decision later on, don't talk about backflipping.
Don't talk about backflips, Thomas. You know when you backflip, what happens when you backflip? You start this way, and what do?
You don't end up at the Gold Coast Titans.
You jump and you spin around. You end up in exactly the same place, right? Facing the exact same bloody way, right? You about face, right? You about face if you're going to change your opinion. The backflip, it's just so meaningless.
You're
it's
against
like my
backflips.
trades. I'm against the misuse of backflip.
What about when James Tedesco backflipped on his Canberra Raiders deal? You'd be all for that backflip.
Mate, he's got a sensational ass. He can just get straight up in the air and around.
He's got the power to do it.
He does. He's got the powerhouse. the twin pack.
This is getting pretty wild now. So
Back to Elias
what were we
Katoa.
talking? Yeah, Elias Katoa.
Fourth most points of any second rower and the 24th price. So, like, I still think there's value there. Base of 50.
He actually has been. He's cost himself a few points with. He's stuffed a try assist. He's dropped the ball when he had made a line break a couple of times. So look, he's got a lot of attack in him, but when you could have got him for 150, 160k cheaper.
I'm on board with you this time, mate. I like Eli Katoa, yeah. I've had him for a few rounds now, and the best thing about it is coming into the season, the sort of question marks were when you had the attacking upside, but was he going to get the minutes? Was he going to have the base? He's since based 49 per game this season. He's looked amazing. He looks fit. His combination with Jerome Hughes, who's obviously out this week, has been outstanding. In saying that, he killed on the weekend without Jerome Hughes. So break even of 14, 577k. I don't think it's too late to jump on him. And yeah, I still think it's a good... Like, a lot of people are talking Teague Wilton still this week. I think Eli Katoa with his upside is a better trading for someone who's not yet peaked, but is going up in value.
Chris is asking Harry Grant to Nico Hines. Obviously, a lot of people are trying to get Hines in, and fair enough, but would you be selling Harry Grant?
If I had Damien Cook as my second hooker.
Yeah, that's
I'd have to have Damien Cook or Reid Marnie. That's the only other,
In which case, you'd find a way to trade Damien Cook or Reid Marnie.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Liam's asking, is getting Schuster at 5'8" this week to move him up next week and get Dill bags still a good play? So you're just essentially moving a week early, hoping that he gets past fit, and it's just a cork. So hopefully he's free next week.
Yeah,
I could get around that.
I think he's an inevitable trade in anyway at some point, isn't he? In the next week or 2 weeks. So I think you're just getting ahead of. I shouldn't say you are getting ahead of the pack, but you're saving trade later on. I don't think much changes.
Jonathan's asking thoughts on Zach Hosking, rather. So Cleary did a press conference this morning and said that Garner wasn't rested, as was said by the official Panthers press release on Tuesday, but that he had a rib injury and that he wasn't dropped and it'll be back soon. So you're reading in a fair bit into what he's saying. It's probably not the best news for Hosking, but Hosking was absolutely incredible on his club debut, 117 or so points. So you just have to have another look this week and see what happens, because you've got Liam Martin coming back and Garner coming back. We don't really know what's going to happen there, so just have a look this week.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
This is easy.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I summed it up too well that time.
I think where people are looking at getting him in early is there's a lot of unhappy Cam Murray owners out there. One of them's on my left, and they're probably looking at going Cam Murray down to him to free up cash to get in Nico Hines. But, I mean, if you can wait a week, like Liam Martin's out, Luke Garner's out. I do think he's probably done enough, even last week, Hosking, to keep an 80-minute role. But even if, like, Liam Martin will come back and play an 80-minute role, if Garner's on the bench, maybe Hosking plays 60 minutes, in which case you're like, will he do enough in that time? So I think definitely wait a week.
There's a lot of love coming in, actually. I love watching you guys from Tim Andrews. It's very rare that we get compliments. And Rob, you're getting a compliment as well. Go, Rob, bringing in the physics to SuperCoach.
I mean, it's not really physics. No, well, thank you. You know, I've been reading a book actually on the history of quantum physics, which has been fascinating.
I'm sure
I could digress, but I won't. But it's like, you know, the Copenhagen statement and where that all fits in SuperCoach is something I'm working on for maybe for next.
Right. Well, let's move on quite quickly to the burning issues. Roosters v Eels tonight. Big clash, not just for SuperCoach, but in NRL terms as well. No changes expected for either team. James Tedesco, he's had a week off with the bye. VC tonight. What are your thoughts?
I wouldn't do it. I'm scared. Like I was saying to Timmy before we came on, look, as a Roosters fan, I figure we were probably going to win one of these games, the Souths and Eels. We've got our win. I'm happy now. We could lose this one and I'll die happy. It's fine. Teddy will only score 43 and I'll get him back next week for not much money. He'll probably score 150 now, won't he?
Probably.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I think if you're captaining Nathan Cleary against the Raiders tomorrow, obviously being the next game, well, in that case it's fine. But with Tommy Trbojevic v the Knights and Nico Hines v the Warriors, they're the obvious skipper options, which means you probably can VC someone else. Yeah, so,
VC, you don't want to go here. I know this because you're a Raiders fan, all right? But you chance to VC Cleary against the 16th worst team in the NRL. 16th worst. Absolute New South Wales Cup side. Then you've got to take Cleary, right? Like a bloke with a 200 ceiling against just the Bears.
Do you know the Raiders were also the 16th worst side after about 7 or 8 rounds last season. We ended up not only making finals, but going a week deeper into the competition than the Roosters. So,
see, that's the mindset, right? That's the Raiders' mindset that had them celebrate with a team photo, right, on the Roosters' hallowed turf after winning, what was it, preliminary final, right? You do that after you win the grand final, like the Roosters do, back-to-back, babies. Yeah, it's like 6 again, please.
Oh, wow.
Look, let's get right into it. Forget SuperCoach, you and me. Let's go, Williams.
This is the sort of chat that we'd be having at 10 p.m. at the Aurora one night. Not 11 a.m. Not 11 a.m. on a
All right. Back to the run sheet. Brandon Smith.
Right.
Yeah,
he's
cool.
he's not going to earn dual status, by the way,
Heavy contact there.
because
Murray just a
he has been. Oh yeah, that's him going through.
All the credit went to Brandon here, but did you see the way that Waria Hargraves fell right over on top of Cam Murray, held onto him, and just took him right out of the play? Yeah. Love it. That was Jared veteran status.
But he's probably not particularly Supercoach relevant these days, Brandon Smith, but he won't get dual status. Sam Walker is the 3rd most popular sell. Would you be getting rid of him, Tim?
I think so. It's a tough draw coming up for the Roosters the next 3 weeks, and people are obviously just moving to Nicho Hynes or Nathan Cleary. And that's the thing, for anyone who doesn't own Nathan Cleary, and I'm keen to get your boys' thoughts on this, but is Nathan Cleary a better buy than Nicho Hynes this week? Because people seem to be going straight to Nicho. You can get 2 weeks of Nathan Cleary, 1 week of Nicho Hynes. As you said, against a Raiders side, pretty depleted, no Jack White, and they were struggling early. 2 weeks of Cleary v 1 week of Hynes. Hynes isn't going up in price after this week. Nathan Cleary, break-even's about 115, very achievable for him. I don't know. Like, I own Cleary. I'm not getting Hynes until after the bye, but is Cleary a better buy than Hynes this week?
Massive price difference, I'll point out as well. He's a lot cheaper, so I can kind of get around that, yeah.
Yeah, if I didn't have Cleary, I would prioritise him this week.
Yeah,
I'd still working out the way to get Hynes. You want them both, right? But 100%, like, Cleary is a better go this week than Latrell, or a better go than it hurts me to say, Teddy, right? He is the ceiling guy here, other than St. Nicho. So,
and as we were saying before, because you need to essentially have Nicho Hynes and Nathan Cleary by round 7. So Sammy Walker, unfortunately, there's no room for him there.
Yep.
Moving on to the Eels, Jermaine Hopgood, obviously he's in his 17. Not a captaincy or VC option these days after that, 50-odd minutes that he played a few weeks back. What are your plans with Jermaine Hopgood? Is he just a hold indefinitely?
Hold until the price is right and then move him on to someone else. There's no long-term love in SuperCoach.
Is he a keeper, though?
If the minutes stay there, sure. But, I mean, well, once his price gets to $650K, then he's got to be doing it every week. There's none of this, I got you cheap and I've made... like, you get to that point, then you've got to hold your value. You've got to hold your spot.
I think he's a keeper. Yeah, he's averaging 87. We look at ceilings of forwards, and he's turned up twice in his first 2 games for the Eels. As I said, it is minutes related, but I think he's that good. And Parra, they're a little light on him forwards this season, so Sean Lane will come back. Obviously, no IPAT this season, so I do think Maddo's going to go into that middle rotation at some point. But I think even if he's playing 65, he's shown how easily he can go the 80. I reckon he's a keeper.
Oh, he's got all the SuperCoach bits to him. I'm just saying that at that point, he'll be competing with Tapane and Fafita and all those guys for a
makes
spot.
It tough.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's chat Friday night footy, of course, brought to you by KFC. The first clash is the Raiders v the Panthers. You've mentioned that this could be a little bit of a bloodbath. Are the Panthers a team to really target this week with their attacking players, your final reserves, your VCs, Cs, etc.?
Yeah, well, I Cleary's my VC for sure. Jack Whiten out not only hurts their attack, it massively hurts their defence. I think Whiten has his maybe faults, I would say, as a 5'8". I think he's a better centre than he is a 5'8", but he's a tremendous defender and just leads that team in that area.
on Cleary's edge as well.
Yeah.
So like Matty Frawley's in there now, probably the informed halfback of the NRL, to be fair, after that 2-point field goal last weekend. He was the informed halfback of the NRL until Nicho Hines come and had 7 line break assists an hour later. But
He's lucky that Sam Williams decided to go and chase the money elsewhere.
Very lucky.
To create a hole.
Very lucky that Sam chased the money at the Queanbeyan Kangaroos, But yeah, so I mean, Cleary on Frawley's edge, who Matty Frawley is a very capable NRL standard player, but as I said, he's not Jack White, and so the matchup for Cleary, he's my VC at the moment. He looks the goods.
Thoughts on Joe Tapine, guys? I think he's really the only Supercoach relevant guy at the Raiders. And does anyone own him? And what are your plans around getting him in?
Well, he's a smoking Joe. He's just starting to warm up, isn't he? I said that last week and he scored 67, I think. I think he's gone 63, 65, 67s, something like that. He's just, as a non-owner, it's scary to watch him because he just keeps taking the hit-ups. I am getting a premium front row this week. So I carried Cotter last week. I didn't want to use a boost, so I just held on to him. In the end, I've gone Haas over Tapine. Tapine's duel is really attractive. But I can't ignore playing Haas's scores, right? Like, I think Tapine's got a 70 this year, and I think Haas has scored below 70 only once of his 4 games. So, in the end, I'm going Haas, but it wasn't by much.
I got Taps in last week, and I think we're scratching the surface of him. In his 4 games so far, he's basing 59 per game. As you said, his minutes are building. Played slightly better minutes last week. He's had...
It's like no attack and...
He's had 7 tackle breaks in 4 games. The back end of last year, he was having 7 tackle breaks per game, and he's offloaded twice. The Raiders, for whatever reason, they lack strike on the edges, and all their footy's played through the middle and being this powerhouse forward pack. So they need to create second phase play. They're just not offloading. Like, there's a clear indication, directive, I should say, that they don't want them. They had 3 offloads last week after 77 minutes. CHN had a late one chasing points. So at some point they've got to go. We need second phase play, and Joe Tapine then starts going whack, whack, whack. So I just think what he's doing this season is his absolute flaw. And whereas Payne Haas, who I certainly don't knock the Payne Haas by, he's been sensational, but he's had some attacking stats to his name. So I like the Taps play.
It's definitely a trend. Sorry, you go.
I've just got to say this, right? 'Cause Timmy's this laconic country guy, right, from Cooma. But then did you feel it pick up? Did you see the pace pick up as the pain? All right, the pain of that Raiders face. Oh, we're not doing anything. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. It made me so happy.
Yeah, well, it's been a tough start to the season, let's be fair.
Schadenfreude. It's just
Tim's pain made you so happy.
Yeah,
and you guys are going to have a fight later on as well.
I don't think my names have been used in the same sentence as laconic either, because I don't know what that means.
Let's move on to... Oh, we probably covered that game. Let's go Rabbitohs v. the Storm, rather. Cameron Murray is or was the most popular sell. That may change a little bit with Schuster being ruled out. What are your thoughts on Murray? I mean, I feel a little bit dirty about selling Cameron Murray, given what he's done in Supercoach and what he's done in the game. Hasn't been at his absolute best, but he hasn't let anyone down either. He's just only dropped by 70-odd K, which is, you'd want him to stay at a steady price, but it's not too bad.
I was going to sell him last week and I didn't. I'm going to sell him this week and I probably won't. And the thing I say each time is that the thing with Cam Murray is you buy him, you hold him, he goes 60, 60, 65, and then 120 and 120, and you'll sell him just before those 120s because he hasn't been doing a lot of running. He's been doing a shed load of tackling and a lot of passing, but he will run at some point, and when he does, he'll probably stick his nose through and then throw a pass around behind, and Damien Cook or Cody Walker will score a try, and, that's my fears. Yeah.
I remember after round 1 when he pumped out the 84, I was sitting there going like, I need to find a way to get him in. He just looked so good and still does it. And people are worried about him, a lot of likening him to what happened to Jake Trbojevic a few years ago, where he became this ball-playing lock. Let's be fair, Jake Trbojevic doesn't have the running game of Cam Murray. So, like, in what world would the coach say, mate, we need you passing more, don't run as much? Like, he's playing quite large minutes, so maybe they're just saying, look, mate, ball play a bit more just to ease your workload. But I just think, look, he's already dropped his 80K. He's averaging 61. He's a scary dude not to own. And I think you're right, Rob. I think the second that you sell him, he's just going to go try, assist, ton. I can't wait to get him into my side.
Well, I'll sell him this week, and then you can all get him cheaper.
Yeah, thanks.
Speaking of fallen guns at the Rabbitohs, Latrell Mitchell has dropped by 134k. So he's got a break even 127, which he can easily hit, even against the Storm. In fact, he does tend to fire up in the bigger games. Thoughts on Latrell as a buy in the next couple of weeks at a good price?
I've been eyeing him for a few weeks for when he does bottom out. I brought Reece Walsh in a week ago, making good coin with an eye for when the Bunnies draw is so tough. It doesn't get a lot easier. I think they play the Dolphins and Bulldogs in a couple of weeks from next week, and then it goes really tough again. But we know that Latrell, when fit and firing, is pretty well match-up proof. So I'm sort of eyeing Walsh to him. You'll probably make a profit on it the way it's going, which is very exciting. Does he look a little bit underdone to you, mate? I don't know if he's carrying or something, but his involvements haven't been overly high. I'm just a little bit concerned. So I'm basically just going to eye it for 2 weeks and then make the decision, is it Teddy or Latrell to come back into partner Tommy Turbo?
For mine, I've got Latrell penciled in as a second half of the season guy. I just feel maybe he warms into it a little bit. You know, he says he goes to the farm and puts in 50 fence posts and comes back as fit as a fiddle, but I kind of feel in between those fence posts there's a few burgers, you know. So I think he really does find his fitness in the second half. Souths find their run in the second half. They're a little bit like the Roosters. Maybe they start playing when it matters. You get that when you've got the experience. You guys will know that in another 80 years or so.
We can't afford to start slowing these into the comp with a salary cap that's in line with the NRL protocols, mate. So,
mate, they've got to pay Sydney salaries. Down in Canberra, you can get away with it, but up here, yeah, we've got cost of living. It's the cola.
It's all relative.
Yeah. Where was I? I lost my point. Latrell Mitchell, I think I'll get him later in the season, but I can see why people would jump on if he drops below, say, 650.
Let's take a couple of questions. Taylor Morton is asking, is Hines a must this week? We haven't really touched on Hines too much, so
We don't know.
Yeah, let's chat.
Too much pain.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're all avoiding him this week and waiting until after the bye. But he is very popular. Rob?
We're avoiding him. We're not watching the game. Why are we not watching them play this week? Because he is so bloody good. Could he score another 180? Yeah, possibly. But I think the Warriors are going better this year. They're a better looking team as a whole. They're not the Dragons. So he might only score 120.
We'd take it, wouldn't we?
Yeah, they would.
Yeah, I'm waiting till after the bye and prioritise. I really like Ruben Garrick's matchup against. He's coming up against Greg Marzu, who was unbelievable on the weekend. He had 24 runs and 12 tackle busts or something. Defensively, though, essentially, there's a reason that he hasn't played 100 first-grade games at this point in his career, because he has his big defensive, he's a bit of a liability. So whether or not he's overcome that, I really hope for his sake and the NRL's sake, because it's a better place with him in the NRL. But I like Garrick matching up on him this week.
Yep, Garrick's in for Saints' Paradise as well. Let's go to late mail. Obviously, the big news from the start of the show is that Josh Schuster is out, probably only for 1 week, so that throws a cat amongst the pigeons in terms of SuperCoach planning. Let's get on to Tohu Harris. So he's been cleared of major damage, but they say they're going to give him until the final moment. The final moment is on Sunday, really, really late in the round. So we're not going to know until pretty late. We will know if he gets on the plane, so that's hopefully we'll be chasing that, and then we just got to wait and see what happens with poor old Tohu.
It's a really tough one, isn't it? Like, people that are sitting there with... Last week when Cotter got injured, a lot of people jumped to any of Tino, Payne Haas, Tohu, Taps. It says it all about front row that they all scored nearly identical. Like, it's not probably the position to chase points. But so anyone running with, say, a Tohu Harrison, Stefano Udakamanu combination up front with maybe Mo Ali and Pele on the bench, you can't really afford to wait till Sunday, can you? Because if you have to plug in and play, well, Pele might be a lot of people's backup front rower who plays after the Warriors, you're leaving yourself really light on. So I'm glad I'm not in that position, but you also don't want to sell him if he's only out for 1 week.
I'd be holding Tohu and finding any other way to get around it. It's easy to say it now, and my team's going like a busted, so don't take any advice from me, but that's why you don't start with just 2 front rows. That's why you always start with 2 legits and a third guy who you can, like mine was Utoa Kamanu, who I can play anytime I need it.
Great spot. It's one of the areas of my side that I'm like just nervous every single week because I've got Taps and Udakamanu there, and then I do have the Moali Pele combination on the bench. So I'm like, I need to not so much rectify that as soon as possible because I'm happy with the way the squad's going, but I just get so nervous. If one of those blokes goes down,
then you can be in trouble for like 2-3 weeks.
Big time, yeah.
Moving on to Luke Garner, we mentioned it before, but the coach did say that he's got a rib injury, potentially back next week, and by the sounds of those quotes, didn't sound particularly promising for Zach Hosking as a purchase for next week. So definitely take a look this round and see what the pecking order is when Liam Martin's back, when Luke Garner's back as well. Isaiah Katoa looks like he's going to play back from that elbow injury. Is anyone selling Katoa this week? I can't get around it because you just don't make much money off the trade, and he's got the break-even of 6.
Oh, you've got to wait. I mean, especially a young half like that. He only needs one game where he gets a couple of try assists, maybe puts his, gets one himself. The Dolphins are scoring lots of points. They just haven't been scoring them quite through him. They've been going wider. I couldn't see the point of selling him now. And
Sean O'Sullivan is out as well, so like long term. So just Katoa's going to have to take up more of a hand in attack, I think. It's a bit of a case of like people who sold off Will Warbrick or Cam Pereira early on, where you just sit there and wait for the attacking stats to come, and even though they have their down games, they'll come, they'll get the price rises. Like, who would have sold those off early, Rob?
I didn't sell both. Right. I just sold one. The one who scored 100 plus.
We usually expect the zingers to come through from the viewers on the live stream here, but it's you two having
just an easy target.
It's just
it's easy to target as each other.
Zinger of the week shared between you two today, I reckon. Oliver Neville is saying 2-0 could be tasty. He's got the Raiders, Eagles, Knights in the next 3 rounds. You're speaking about him off air before. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, he's basing like 45 per game. He's had a try and a line break as major attacking stats this season. So it's the Penrith Panthers. He started slowly in attack, but the points will come. And when they do, on top of that base, he's already dropped a little bit of cash. So I think a lot of people are selling to Garrick or say Kiraz this week. It's a lot of money going up to those two, $130,000 or $170,000 to sell Toto. I've got him on my side, and I'm pretty happy with him.
I'll sacrifice the tiny bit of integrity I have left just for you.
Thanks,
right? And I'll say the problem with Toto is that Crichton never passes the ball ever. He's got 0 try assists in his entire time in rugby league. I pointed this out last time that I think he had like 2 or 3 try assists last year, and he passed to Toto like literally 2 hours later, and Toto scored a try. So there you go. It's my gift.
Thank you, mate.
Ross Mann is saying Rob is absolutely on fire today. So you're getting lots of compliments on here, Rob. Christopher is saying, it's not a question, he's just saying it is Miller time. Can you imagine if you owned Kiraz, Garrick and Miller? Yeah. They're looking like 3 seriously good guys at CTW.
Miller's massively, not massively under the radar, but has been going under the radar, and we haven't talked about him all show. And it's part of it is the Knights are...
the Knights?
Developing. I mean, they're above the Raiders on the ladder, so they're not going absolutely terribly, but they're going, they're struggling. But Miller just keeps working, like Ponga went down and the attack became, like Miller just stepped up. He's heaps of runs, he busts tackles, he puts people through. Price is getting awkward now, but dual position and everyone's jumping into Garrick, you can get Miller for a bit less. They even took up the goal kicking, for bits last week.
Speaking of backline stars at the Knights, we've got a question on YouTube from Bing Ping TV asking thoughts on bringing in Marzu this week.
I had him in my side for a period leading into round 1, and then he was ruled out, and I was like, I didn't need that headache. Like, thank you, because he was about $570K, not exactly cheap, $570, $580. Man, he was good on the weekend, and we were sort of sitting there saying that in the preseason, on the left wing spot outside Kalen Ponga is going to be a gold mine for SuperCoach. Obviously, KP wasn't there on the weekend, and he actually played on the right edge. Like we mentioned before, though, it's just job security. Like, if Garrett comes and scores 3 tries through him with poor defensive reads this weekend, he could be out of the team. So, upside, he's a top 4 CT dub keeper the entire season and averages 80. He really could be. Bottom downside, he could be dropped next week, especially with Dom Young there.
Can we jump into the guilty pleasures early? Because that would be...
Yeah.
Next week, I'm looking at cashing out Carraz, which is, like, yes, acceptably the stupidest thing in the world, right? Because I think he's the top scorer in the game. He might be leading the Dally M's. He's got more offloads and tackle busts than any player in the comp. But me, I look and I go, 740, that's where you are. I'll take the money. And I could take it into Marzoo because that would be such a guilty pleasure, right? The smart player is probably Alex Johnson, who I think will be at the same price and has this, like he just consistently wins the try-scoring competition. But Greg Marzoo would be my guilty pleasure.
Well, you've completely stuffed the run sheet here. I'm going to first throw now to guilty pleasures.
This is the last time you and I get on the show.
Done.
Let's enjoy
let's do it.
Yeah.
No, let's do it more often. My guilty pleasure is Jonah Pezzett. I know it doesn't make sense. It's 1 week cash grab, maybe 2, but I just love watching him play. I think he's a really talented young player. At the Storm, he should make at least 100k unless he gets injured in the next 2 weeks. So I'm kind of leaning towards going there. Your guilty pleasure?
I'll go with holding Adam Dewey, who's obviously been pretty sold with that sore hoof. I just think he's I don't look into history in terms of like players at venues and whatnot too often because teams change every season, players change every season. But I think his last 2 performances have been enormous at Suncorp Stadium against the Broncos, like big tons. 54 last week in a losing side against Melbourne. I think he did it so easily. Like there was very few attacking stats there. So I think when everyone's selling off Dewey, I think I'm just going to stick tight with him.
Yep, fair enough. Decent call. Let's go cheapie of the week. So obviously number 1 on this list was Josh Schuster until about, an hour or so ago when Schuster was ruled out this week. So that means that opens up a whole bunch of other guys. I think Jackson Ford is the next best guy to get in if you don't own him. Thoughts there?
Yeah, I like Jackson Ford. Obviously, he had the concussion game, 2 back for him, so that stunted any cash growth. Break even of 22 this week. I think he looks locked into an 80-minute role there. I think you started with him, you might have got him in a couple of weeks ago, and just looks like he's going to bust out solid points. The Warriors are looking nice. I think he's a great buy.
Andrew Webster, the coach, is on record. I think it was this week, saying that Ford is not an impact guy. Ford is an 80-minute guy, and that's how you've got to play him to get the best out of him. I was just like, yes, yeah, and he's not like an 80-minute guy like a Tarek Sims, who you can forget he's out there sometimes. Tarek Sims, when he played 80, he was very explosive, and when he did stuff, he did good stuff. And I'm bagging guys like an Origin player, but that. Ford is always in the action. He's either making the dummy run, the decoy run, making tackles, moving into the middle, making tackles. He made lots of runs last week. He's running off the hip of his halves. He's looking good. Yeah, I think he's great.
I don't love him as a play just because he's a toiler. He'll make his tackles, have his 10, 15 runs and score okay. But I do think the attacking upside will be limited. But I think there's genuine cash growth. Position looks pretty safe, so...
I'm seeing a potential Origin player here. No, maybe not. No, but the attack is... I think the attack's better than... I think it's too much of your muscle memory is watching him at the Dragons, right? At the Warriors, he's looking better. To me, he looks like he's a line break chance every game.
Yeah, I reckon he might get a try running off SJ or TMM or Volkman's in there this week, so I'm not sure how he is as a ball player.
He's left edge off Volkman, isn't he?
Yeah, but SJ moves around a lot. He's mostly right, but he moves around a fair bit. Isaac for Asmalali. Look, we've spoken about Matt Croker. If you want to relive that chat, rewind to the start. But Isaac for Asmalali is pretty popular this week. I'm shocked with how popular he is, particularly given that he's got the bye this round. But he's averaging 40-odd, around a point per minute. His brother reckons he's a better player than he is. Absolute bottom dollar, 200k. So that's the big factor for him.
I can't have it. I don't see the appeal for all the reasons you said. He's not even playing this week. I don't quite get this one.
They've just effectively immediately signed Thomas McKaylee, the former Tiger, big bopper from England as well. So we need to see how he comes into this middle rotation. Let's just see how the team's named next week. But I don't need another Mo Ali or Pele sitting on my bench.
Yep, indeed. Trent Copeland not here today, but we still call this segment Cope's Captains. Right, I'm going to hit you with a few percentages, guys. This is the percentage of the top 10% of teams. Nicho Hynes, 52%. If you've got him, you just lock him in, yeah? You don't even overthink it.
Nicho Hynes captaining is the reason that I'd say 93% of them are in the top 10% from last week. Well done. Yeah, you got to write it.
Nicho.
Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced. I think Tommy Turbo against the Knights in Mudgee has a great matchup as well.
Oh, that's who I'm doing. But if I had Hynes, I think I'd find it irresistible.
Yeah, Turbo at 20%.
Not going to knock it, for sure. But and this is possibly very wishful thinking, but I'm just licking my wounds big time. But I just want Tommy Turbo to come out this week, punch out 180, which I think is possible. Might be a little ambitious, but even like 140, 150. Nicho toils to his 60 against a resilient Warriors outfit, and then just that pain of last week just comes back a little.
Nicho just gets 4 try contributions instead of try assists, and bang, you're cheering.
It's a Matty Moylan masterclass sweeping out the back.
Moving on to Harry Grant, still at 11% ownership. What are your thoughts on him as a captain this week? Up against the Rabbitohs. It's an interesting choice.
It was an odd one last week. I think he made his season high tackles. And normally when Harry Grant made his season high tackles, you'd expect him to get close to his season high score. But there were bugger all runs. There were no tackle busts. There was no attacking stats. I wouldn't be captaining him this week.
One to monitor with the Tigers going forward, and number 9's playing against them. Their middle, their pack is very solid, at least on paper. A lot of the damage done against them is on the edges. So Harry Grant scored, 43 or something last week against them. The week before that, Reid Marnie, who started like a house on fire, he scored 44 points. So I would just be a little bit cautious. So any Billy Walters owners out there looking to throw the C on him this week up at Suncorp, just maybe hold off.
On the VCs, I won't harp on too much, but I'm a bit shocked that Cleary's only at 15%. I think that is quite low for Cleary as a VC.
It's a gimme VC of the week, I reckon.
Yep.
And I suppose because Nicho's such high captaining, they can't VC.
Oh, yeah, they can't get it across.
True. Yeah. All right, questions till the end of the show. Crazy Praying Mantis is saying, Schuster is made of tissue. I'm avoiding him completely, even if he's in. Can't see me ever playing him, and I don't think he makes enough cash quickly enough because he'll be out every second week. Crazy Praying Mantis coming off the long
tissue injury of the season, and we're only 5 weeks in.
Well, this is more
some level of points.
I think this is an impact
it's
injury rather than a
soft tissue, but he
makes. I don't know, mate. My quad's pretty soft. I think
it's still technically soft tissue, but it's more of an impact injury rather than a muscle tear.
Right.
I understand it though. The Schuster, he's right. There seems to be something wrong with him every second week, and look, at the end of the day, round 1, scored about 58 points with 3 try assists. I know 2 of them were off kicks, granted, but he based 9 in round 1.
He did make 20-odd tackles in his last game.
Yeah,
that was with the dodge. Apparently, he'd hurt his quad.
But the tackles doesn't worry me. He can make his 20 tackles a game. We need to see him running
Well, maybe if he'd done his quad,
maybe.
I'm just trying to find excuses.
I will more than likely, almost certainly, be buying him next week, but I can see why people are thinking of going against him potentially.
Cameron Thompson is asking, is Wade Egan to Hynes via Tanner Boyd a good option, even though Egan has more dollars to earn? I think you just lock that in. Egan doesn't have that much more money to make.
Break even 19, Egan.
Yeah, so I reckon to get Nicho, just do it.
Maybe just. Yeah, I suppose.
I like it. I think Egan's been good, and it was a shame that he didn't obviously play last week, but he's also had 3 tries and a stack of attacking numbers in his first 3 games. So I think if you can turn him into Nicho, go for it.
Well, that is it for the Game Day podcast. It was great having you two on the show, and well done on getting the Zinger of the week for Rob and Tim. Hopefully you guys don't brawl later on.
I think that was the extent of it.
Yeah, we good.
Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you next week.
Cheers.